Today, we're diving deep into the real stories behind the Greek gods, and they're way more twisted than anything you learned in school. These weren't the heroic figures Disney shows you. The Greek pantheon was absolutely wild, filled with betrayal, violence, and consequences that literally shaped civilization. Grab some popcorn, hit that subscribe button, and let's uncover the untold psychology behind every major Greek god. Let's start with the big guy himself, Zeus. You see that eagle symbol everywhere, right? Well, the story behind Zeus's rise to power is basically Game of Thrones with lightning bolts. This dude literally had to overthrow his own father, Kronos, who was eating his kids to stay in power. Yeah, you heard that right. Eating his children. Zeus had to fight an entire war against the Titans just to become king of the gods. Talk about family drama. But here's where it gets really messed up. Zeus was a serial cheater who used shapeshifting to trick women into sleeping with him. He turned into a bull for Europa, a swan for Leda, and get this, golden rain for Danae. Classical scholar Carl Karenyi points out these weren't love stories. They were power plays where mortals had zero choice in the matter. And Hera's famous jealousy? Anthropologist Claude Lévi-Strauss argues she was actually being totally rational. She couldn't divorce Zeus or challenge him directly, so she went after his side pieces and illegitimate kids instead. Honestly, can you blame her? Poseidon wasn't just the sea god. This guy was called the Earth Shaker because he could literally cause earthquakes when he got mad. His trident wasn't some cute fishing spear, it was a weapon of mass destruction that could split continents. The ancient Greeks were terrified of this dude because their entire economy depended on sea travel, and they lived in earthquake country. When Poseidon felt disrespected, entire cities got wrecked. Remember Troy? Yeah, Poseidon helped destroy it because King Laomedon stiffed him on payment for building the city walls. Here's a crazy story. When both Poseidon and Athena wanted to be the patron god of Athens, they had a contest. Poseidon created a saltwater spring, Athena made an olive tree. The Athenians picked Athena's gift, so Poseidon threw the ultimate tantrum and flooded the whole area. Historian Robert Graves thinks this myth actually preserves memories of real conflicts between fishing communities and farmers in ancient Greece. Everyone thinks Athena's owl represents peaceful wisdom, but her origin story is metal as hell. She was born fully grown and armed, bursting out of Zeus's head after he swallowed her pregnant mother. They literally had to split his skull open with an axe. Athena wasn't about knowledge for knowledge's sake. She was the goddess of strategic warfare. Her wisdom was specifically about winning battles and outsmarting enemies, and she could be petty as hell. Remember Arachne, the girl who claimed she could weave better than Athena? Even when Arachne's work was perfect, Athena destroyed it and turned her into a spider, doomed to weave forever. Psychologist Carl Jung would say this represents what happens when humans challenge forces way beyond their understanding. The Trojan horse? That was Athena's idea, so even divine wisdom could be used for straight-up deception when it served her purposes. Apollo seems like the perfect god. Music, poetry, healing, prophecy. His laurel wreath still crowns winners today. But the origin of that crown is seriously disturbing. So there was this nymph named Daphne who rejected Apollo's advances. Instead of taking no for an answer, Apollo chased her until she begged to be turned into a laurel tree to escape him. And Apollo's response? He made the laurel sacred and wore its leaves as a crown. Basically, he turned his failed stalking attempt into a victory symbol. Yikes! Apollo was also the god of both healing and plague, which shows how unpredictable divine power could be. He could cure your diseases or send a plague to wipe out your entire army, like he did when Agamemnon disrespected his priest. The oracle at Delphi is fascinating, too. Modern geological surveys found ethylene gas emissions at the site, toxic vapors that could actually cause the trances the priestesses experienced. The ancient Greeks were basically using natural hallucinogens to create religious experiences. Artemis was probably the most independent goddess in the pantheon. As protector of young women and goddess of the hunt, she had zero tolerance for boundary violations. Poor Actaeon learned this the hard way. He accidentally saw Artemis bathing, and she immediately turned him into a stag. His own hunting dogs tore him apart because they didn't recognize their master. The message was clear. Even accidental violations of divine privacy could be fatal. When the hunter Orion either tried to assault one of her followers or boasted he could kill every animal on Earth, depending on which version you read, Artemis sent a giant scorpion after him. Both Orion and the scorpion ended up as constellations, forever chasing each other across the night sky. She even demanded human sacrifice sometimes. Before the Greek fleet could sail to Troy, Artemis required Iphigenia's life as payment. Even the good gods expected terrible prices for their help. You'd think the goddess of love would be all sunshine and roses, but Aphrodite's interventions usually ended in tragedy. Her biggest claim to fame? Starting the Trojan War. When Paris judged her the most beautiful goddess, she bribed him by promising Helen's love, Helen of Troy, who was already married. This divine matchmaking led to a 10-year war that destroyed an entire civilization. Her affair with Ares, the war god, shows the connection between passionate love and violence. When her husband Hephaestus caught them together, he trapped them in an unbreakable net and displayed their shame to all the gods. Even divine marriages weren't immune to cheating scandals. Philosopher René Girard argued that myths like these explore how desire leads to rivalry and violence. Aphrodite could be ruthless to anyone who rejected love or rivaled her beauty. Just ask Hippolytus or Psyche. Modern movies always make Hades the villain, but ancient Greeks saw him totally differently. Unlike his drama queen brothers Zeus and Poseidon, Hades mostly stayed in his lane, running the underworld fairly and efficiently. His kidnapping of Persephone was messed up by today's standards, but it functioned within ancient Greek marriage customs where fathers arranged everything. Plus, the myth explained why we have seasons. When Persephone returns each spring, she brings life back to the world. The underworld wasn't the Christian hell either. It was more like a sorting system. Heroes went to the Elysian fields, truly evil people went to Tartarus, and most souls ended up in the neutral Asphodel meadows. Pretty fair, actually. Hades was also incredibly wealthy. His name literally means rich one. He controlled all the precious metals underground, plus ruled over billions of dead souls. This made him one of the most powerful gods, but he used that power way more responsibly than Zeus ever did. Everyone calls Hera jealous, but historian Maria Tatar points out she was actually responding rationally to an impossible situation. As goddess of marriage, she was stuck with a cheating husband she couldn't divorce or directly confront. Her persecution of Zeus's lovers and kids wasn't just spite, it was political strategy. She was protecting her own children's inheritance rights in a system where divine power passed through bloodlines. Take her treatment of Heracles. Her attempts to destroy Zeus's son weren't random cruelty. They were calculated moves to eliminate threats to her family's power. When you think about it like that, her actions make perfect sense. Hera also severely punished anyone who violated marriage vows, which reflected her role as guardian of family stability. Even though her own marriage was dysfunctional, she was trying to protect the institution itself. Dionysus represents the terrifying power of losing control. Born from Zeus's thigh after his mother died, he had to prove his divinity through displays of overwhelming power. King Pentheus banned Dionysus worship in his city, so the god drove all the women into a frenzy. Pentheus's own mother tore him apart with her bare hands, not realizing it was her son until it was too late. Anthropologist Victor Turner noted how these myths explore the thin line between sacred ecstasy and destructive madness. The Maenads, Dionysus's female followers, would enter trance states where they gained superhuman strength and lost all inhibitions. These rituals could be liberating, allowing people to break free from social constraints, but they could also turn deadly in an instant. Dionysus was both liberator and destroyer, reflecting how the Greeks understood alcohol and celebration. They could bring joy and community, but also violence and tragedy when taken too far. When Hades kidnapped her daughter Persephone, Demeter's grief literally brought about the apocalypse. All plant life withered and died, not just because she was sad, but because she was waging economic warfare against Zeus. By withholding the harvest, Demeter forced the king of gods to negotiate. The compromise, Persephone spending part of each year in the underworld, became the mythological explanation for seasons, but it also showed how even gods couldn't always protect their loved ones from other divine beings. Scholar Walter F. Otto argued that Demeter's establishment of the Eleusinian mysteries offered people emotional healing through shared understanding of loss and renewal. Her personal tragedy became the foundation for one of ancient Greece's most important religious experiences. Here's the thing, these ancient stories aren't just about gods throwing lightning bolts around. What makes Greek mythology absolutely irresistible is that these so-called divine characters are basically us, but with superpowers and zero chill. Think about it. Zeus gets jealous and starts a war. Hera plots revenge like she's planning the ultimate takedown. Achilles throws the ancient equivalent of a rage quit that gets people killed. These gods feel jealousy, heartbreak, fury, and love just like we do, except when they have a bad day, entire cities burn. And here's what's brilliant about the Greeks. They weren't trying to create perfect role models. They were like, hey, let's see what happens when someone with god-level power has human-level emotional intelligence. Spoiler alert, it usually ends badly, but that's exactly why these stories hit so hard. We're still using phrases like Achilles' heel and Pandora's box because these myths nailed something fundamental about how humans work. Our strengths, our fatal flaws, the whole messy package. And once you understand these original stories, suddenly you start seeing them everywhere. In movies, books, politics, art. It's like someone just handed you a secret decoder ring for Western culture. These ancient Greeks basically wrote the psychological playbook we're still using today.